Hello internet! Today I am making a shirt for my dad for Father's Day, and I thought I'd take you along for the making of process. So I'm using a very old pattern that my mom gave me. It's McCall's 4056 shirt pattern. I think this pattern is like 30 years plus, 35 plus. I don't know how old this is. I'm pretty sure this is from the 80s. This is my dad's preferred shirt pattern. This is actually, when I got it, was an uncut copy that my mom had that she had squirreled away in case she needed another copy. So for making this shirt, you will need, I think it's like 2 1/4 yards of fabric. If it's skinny fabric like what I have here. Oh, look at that. Look at that pattern. So it says it's a 3-hour shirt on the pattern. I've made this before and it takes me more than 3 hours, but I'm gonna go ahead and lay out all the pattern bits and get stuff cut out and show you how to follow this pattern. Actually, I really like this pattern. I don't know who was writing the pattern, but they have like lots of like little tips and tricks on the pattern. And I feel like whoever wrote this was kind of snarky, but anyway, I'm gonna lay out the pattern and get everything cut out. Now, my fabric has a design on it. So this is fabric that my mom bought that I have taken from her because her sewing machine's borked. And it's like got little helicopters and airplanes on it, and it goes in a certain direction, so I have to make sure to lay everything out in the correct orientation so that the shirt's not upside down. So let me do that and I'll show you everything once it's pinned. Okay, everybody's pinned down except for the pocket, because I like to match the pocket with the front fabric to kind of make the pocket disappear a little bit. So yeah, this is it all pinned out. It's a pretty simple pattern. The sleeve almost doesn't fit in the right direction, but I made it work. I'm gonna have to, take a little off the seam allowance, but that's okay. This pattern actually has a really big seam allowance. It's like a 1/2 inch seam allowance, which is kind of unheard of in modern patterns. Most modern patterns have a 3/8 inch seam allowance, but this one has a 1/2 inch. So it's a back piece, 2 fronts. I'm gonna have to cut out some interfacing once I'm done cutting fabric and stuff, but yeah, there's a yoke and bits and stuff. So I'm gonna cut all this out and ready. Ta-da! I got ahead of myself and I cut out not only 1 shirt, but 3 shirts worth of fabric. Oops. Anyway, I'm just gonna show you making 1. I'm gonna make the other off camera. And so now I have to cut out the interfacing for the collar and the front of the shirt. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to serge all of the pieces that I cut out so that there's no raw edges, because these are going to be shirts for everyday wear. So I want to make sure that the raw edges are taken care of and aren't raw and won't fray. So I'm going to cut this out and then I'm going to serge those pieces. And then I'll get into actually how to put the shirt together. So let's do this. All right, so cue the SpongeBob like 3 hours later meme thing. It took me a while to serge all that stuff. I'm a little tired. I'm going to take a break and then get to sewing. My fabric's just all in really messy piles right now. I have to stop getting ahead of myself and try to make lots of things all at once. Okay, break and then sew. Well, hello camera. It's actually 3 days later and I haven't touched the shirts because I have a nerve injury in my elbow. It's called ulnar-neuritis, and it decided to flare Thursday night, and which means my hand goes really numb and tingly, and I can still use it, but I don't want to, like mess up the nerve more than it already is. So I've been taking some time off just to let my arm rest, which is putting me further behind, but whatever. Sometimes, you can't push your body further than what it wants to do. It's an old sports injury of like all the things that I've ever done to myself. They're all old sports injuries. So I'm going to start you know, just slowly working on the shirts. I have a couple days until Father's Day and giving these shirts to my dad, so I'm just gonna go ahead and start in on them. The first step is to iron the interfacing onto the fronts, so that's the first thing. Let me show you the instructions. Okay, so the directions, the first step is to iron the interfacing on to the wrong side of the shirt. I have already gone ahead and serged everything, so whenever it says like finish a raw edge, I've already actually done that. So I'm gonna go ahead and fuse all the interfacing onto the fronts of the shirts and the collars, because that's the next step after that. And then after that is putting the pockets on. Now this pattern, you can put pockets on both sides. I'm only gonna be putting it on one side. It's gonna be the left because that's the side that my dad likes. I've actually already marked the shirts with chalk. I'm not sure if the markings are still there where the pocket goes, but the pocket, it wants you to baste around the corners first, so you can pull those basting stitches to pull the corners in, so you can like iron it down, and then you iron the top in one direction, and then you iron it back in the other direction to make a nice finished top, and then you stitch it on the shirt. So we're gonna iron some interfacing first and then start in on the pockets. Okay, pockets. So I pressed, the instructions say to press the top edge in 1/4 inch to the wrong side, and then press to the hemline on the outside. So I did that for 2 pockets. Only 2 of the shirts are gonna have pockets, but all right. So the next step is I gotta sew 3/8 of an inch in at these edges, and then clip the corners, and then fold it and turn it the other way around. And then I get to turn in this edge, and that's why I stitched the basting stitches here, so that I can pull. And once I flip this over, turn this, press it, and then pin it to the shirt where it's going to go. That will be the pocket, and then I just top stitch the pocket onto the shirt. Okay, so the next step, now that I got the pockets on, is to start with the back. So I need to pleat the top of the back. I have my pattern piece here. I'm gonna mark on my fabric in chalk where I need to pleat to, and then I'm gonna iron that pleat down. And then the next step is to, with right sides together, pin yoke to upper edge of back, matching notches, and stitch. So I'm gonna stitch one of the yokes to the back. And then it gets complex and weird because I stitched the yoke to the front pieces, and then one of the other yokes goes on to the collar. I'll get there in a minute. We're gonna do all the pleats in the back, and then stitch on the back yokes. Okay, so I did the pleats. There they are. And as you can see, the edges now match up. The notches match up. And this is ready to sew. Doing the pleats is really easy. You just line up the edges where you mark them or you pin them, and then you just press it. And so we're ready to sew this. Okay, I got that done. So now it's on to right sides together, pin yoke to forward shoulder, edges to front, matching notches, and press seam onto towards the yoke. So we're gonna pin the shoulders to the yoke and do this step. Alright, so this is all done. Well, bam! And so now I'm going to pin the collar sections together and stitch along unnotched edges. So this side. I've messed up before and stitched along this side. Don't do that. Also, I'm gonna follow this pro tip, and on the unnotched edges of the collar, cut off 1/8 of an inch of fabric to prevent rolling once the collar is installed. So basically I'm just gonna cut off the serging on the piece that is not got the interfacing. So on this piece I'll cut on this one. So I'm gonna do that cutting and then pin right sides together and then sew along the unnotched edges. Collars have been flipped and pressed. Okay, so next step is to turn right side collar. So I press, I did that. And then pin collar to neck edge, right sides up. Matching notches, circles, and finished edges of collar to small circle on fronts. So I'm going to pin that and then press under 1/2 inch on lower edge and shoulder edges of yoke facing, or see next pro tip. Okay. And then open out pressed under shoulder edges and stitch yoke facing to shoulder edges of front facing, taking up a 5/8 inch seam allowance. That's a big seam allowance. Cut stitchable interfacing close to stitching. Okay, so this is where things get weird. So I'm going to pin the collar on and then press the yoke piece that I haven't sewn onto the shirt yet, and then pin and stitch that to the front facing section, and then it'll like flip over and get sewn down. Does that make sense? Hope so. Okay, I'm going to pin the collars on and then do all this. Okay, so now I have to sew these together, and then I'll get into the directions in a sec. So pin facing to outside at neck edge, over collar, matching notch edges and circles. Stitch entire neck edge, cut corners diagonally, grade seam allowances by cutting to graded widths and stitchable. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so I'm supposed to match these seams here. Match that there. Got that in there. Might need to shift the collar a skosh here. Basically what this does is this installs the collar at the same time as covering the collar hem. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Okay, so now I gotta stitch the collar in. So it's actually kind of late. I'm gonna stop here for the night before I install the collars, because I don't want to install them while I'm tired, because then I'm gonna make a mistake. So I'm gonna pick this on up tomorrow and finish all these shirts tomorrow, and then hopefully edit the video and put this up on the internet. Okay, good night. Okay, it's the next day. I spent all morning running errands, and now it's time to get back to work on the shirts. So I am ready to put all the collars in, so I'm gonna go ahead and start sewing those collars, and then we're gonna move on from there. I have a feeling we're gonna be able to finish these things today. Not just a feeling, I'm gonna finish these things today. All right, let's go. Okay, next step, now that I got the collars in, is to, come on, focus. Turn the facing to the inside, match up everything with the seams, and then top stitch. So that's what I've gotten done here. I've matched up the facing with the shoulder seam and then the back seam here, And then I'm gonna have to go ahead and top stitch it. And I think it says to top stitch from the outside. So I'm gonna do that. And you can slip stitch this by hand for both the shoulders and the back seam if you don't want any top stitching showing, but I don't have time for that. So I'm gonna finish pinning the last shirt that I need to pin and then do this top stitching. And then the last bits is actually making the shirt, like, you know, putting it together. So the sleeves need to go on, and then I gotta do the side seams and the hem and the buttons. So there's not too much left that's really like complex. So yeah, like if I was actually just doing one shirt, and it would probably take me like 3-4 hours, but you know, multiply that by, I'm doing 3 shirts and it takes longer than 3 hours. All right, let's get this top stitching done. We have arrived at step 5, sleeves and underarm seams. So I'm gonna put this in the arm side and then I'm gonna sew it. So I just gotta pin them in. I can baste, but I don't necessarily need to unless I need to ease. So I'm just gonna start pinning stuff and then sew it. Yep. And then sew up the sides. Yay. So if you're like me and hate setting sleeves into arm size, this is the easy way to do it. Leave your side seam open until your sleeve is set in the shoulder. Ooh, no. Leave your sleeve, leave the side seam open until your sleeve is set in at the shoulder, and then you can just do that seam up. Yes, it is so easy. So now I'm just gonna pin the side seams and we will have a shirt. And then hem sleeve, hem bottom, and buttons. We're getting close to done. We're getting close to done. Woohoo! We on to step 6, finishing the hems. So all the seams are sewn. Now I gotta do a lot of pressing. So I gotta press up the unfinished edge about 1/4 inch and then press up all the hems about 1 inch on both the bottom and on the sleeves, and then sew that. And then there's a little pro tip for the front facing, just to slip stitch this at the bottom, and I always usually do that because then that holds the front facing in place. Other than the buttons or the buttonholes, there's really nothing holding this down, so having that attached at the bottom is nice. And then it's time for buttons and buttonholes. So this thing has a really nice thing about like fit for women, fit for men, like what to do and stuff. But my machine has an automatic buttonhole foot and it can sew on buttons as well. So yeah, that's pretty fast and easy at this point. So I just gotta do the hems and mark where the buttonholes are gonna go and put those in the shirts, and then I'll show you the finished shirts. I'm so close to done, I can taste it. I marked where the buttonholes go, and I just gotta put the buttonhole foot on my thing, and then put the buttonholes in, and then put the buttons on, and then they're done. Oh, I'm so tired. Almost done. All right, let's do this. It's a shirt, it has all its buttons, and then there's more shirt. Oh, hi. And then there's more shirts with a cat on it. So yeah, all the shirts are done. So these are all men's medium using that McCall's pattern. Like and subscribe if you like this type of content and like cute cats. Yeah. He's down here because he wants food. So of course he has to sit on my projects and get cat hair all over them while begging for food. But that's it. The shirts are done finally, and this took forever because I made 3 of them at once. But oh, of course he gets off now. I'm pretty happy with how they came out. They're gonna be a pretty awesome Father's Day gift. If you'd like to see more vlog content like this, let me know in the comments down below. Again, don't forget to hit that subscribe notification bell thing. Subscribe, like, comment. All right, cool. I'll see you in the next video.